Hello. Hi, and welcome to the Insert Coin panel, where we're going to be talking about investment in gamedev. And with me, I've got the lovely Michał Pietrzkiewicz, Paweł Sługacki, Piotr Pabieno, and Stan Just. And basically, everybody wants to get money, everybody wants to get invested into. That's great. But, oh, is that better? Okay, sorry about that. So yes. Investment into games. Obviously, there are a gazillion ways to do it. The topic is super long. We're going to try and keep it brief, and then if you have any questions, then you're more than welcome closer to the end of the panel. And I would actually like to start off with a little bit of basics. So I tend to believe that nothing is obvious and everything is, personal or subjective. So starting off actually with Michał on my left here, who, from a private perspective, how would you actually define what's important for you if you were to invest into a project as a private investor?
So hello everybody. First of all, I think that the honest communication is what I value when talking to people. Overpromise is something that we meet nowadays very often. So there are a lot of people coming and saying that they know how to repeat the success story of studios like 11-bit Studio or Creepy Jar. For me, that's a basically no-go. There are still people coming saying that they are able to build a game dev studio from scratch, doing a premium AAA game or even AAA game, and that's not possible. That's basically not possible. Doing that from scratch. So that's also for me a no-go. I would expect people have some experience in game development. I like when people have everything thought out, well organized. So talking to them, I would expect them to know answers to at least some of my questions. If they don't know answers to my questions, I would like to see them being enthusiastic about what they do, at least trying to tackle my questions somehow. I don't mind working with people that failed at some point of time, so failure is not something that will stop our cooperation or further discussions. I still believe that you can learn a lot from making mistakes. So for me, that would be an advantage, having some experience with other projects. And I would say that three things for a start.
Okay, and Paweł, from your perspective, more of a corporate man in a suit and a tie, kind of, that kind of vibe, would you say, almost, would you say that that's pretty much the same thing, or you're actually looking at certain points that are completely different versus what Michał said?
Yeah, Michał said a lot of good things. So to add, apart from that, definitely I'm looking at the longer perspective. So I seldom ask the management, what would you do in 5-year horizon? So the strategy of the company, and do you plan to exit like an owner? Do you want to sell to Embracer in 5 years or 2 or 3? Or another, would you accept the offer from minority investment from Asian funds or Asian Tencent, NetEase, and so on, perfect word. So basically, the experienced managers know, don't hesitate, they know the answer. Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm checking the companies on small talks. I always, when someone is pitching, looking for financing, I can ask if I will get you more money than you thought you could grab. What would you do with that? Yeah. So do you have a plan? Do you can expand that? Is the studio or the team scalable? That's important for me, because in Polish game dev, especially non-listed companies, there's a lot of small teams, apart from simulators, obviously. And the big guys, on the non-public, it's like 50, 70, 80 the team of developers, it's not a lot of companies. So it's like Teon, Anshar, Matabu, and so on. So every other significant company, let's say medium size or larger, most of them are on the stock exchange, so everybody knows them, also investors. A few missing, like Astronauts, Techland, Hawks, and a few other names. So, and I'm always assessing the man, like with who I talk. So, is it a good guy? Looking deeply in the eyes and this community of after parties and networking, like these last days. It's like you can check these people. Yeah, you want to have fun together. So that's my perspective.
And actually, that's a very interesting, good point that you bring up in terms of how it is a partnership, it is a relationship that, you know, goes both ways. And I also know that everybody tends to glorify how it's awesome to be an investor versus it's awesome to be the recipient of somebody else's money. But what happens then? In terms of, Piotr, I'm going to actually go to you next. What would you say is the worst possible case scenario of a cooperation between an investor and an investee?
Investors are great, so we are happy to talk with them always, especially if they are asking us about next game based on NFT, blockchain, and so on. So no, and seriously, it's like that you know, this is what Pavel told, that we like investors who are thinking about the future, about where we are going to, because most of shareholders on the Polish stock exchange, they mostly thinking about next few quarters. And if they don't understand where company is going to, they will not be good for the company and they will be unhappy because what company is doing right now. So I would say that this is the most important stuff from my point of view.
Stan, what do you think?
I'm not an investor, but to add to that discussion, so I'm very glad that I'm at the end of the line. But just to add to the discussion, because you started with asking like what the investor looks for, and it's the first thing when I was looking for investors, I've heard a lot of times that they are looking for the team, so looking at the people first and foremost, and then looking at the project, because as been said already, first projects might not turn out well, but if the team is solid, then there's a decent chance that the success will come in time. To add an anecdote, the question that I've been given at some point at the very beginning that surprised me was that when you're creating a company together with looking for an investor, why are you doing that? Like, why do you want to stop developing games and become a CEO of a company and run a company that makes games? So that was a bit of a surprise for me, and not an obvious answer to give, because usually people think that you'll get some money to develop games because you're a developer, but eventually when you turn into a CEO and turn into somebody that is responsible for somebody else's work, need to organize them and need to gather funds and be responsible for all those things, your life changes. And like people don't realize that quite often.
If I may add something, we're mixing few things. So when talking about investors, it's a broad term, so we really mean three terms, like capital providers, investors, and people that speculate. So all those three groups have their own focus, and we need to know how to talk to them and how to approach them. So probably there will be that distinction, and when talking with certain group of investors, we will be talking to them slightly in a different manner.
And do you maybe want to expand on that a little bit, especially in terms of the how to approach what each of the investor groups actually wants to hear / what they're not interested in, or for example, from the perspective of a developer, what should we be looking out for when actually talking to, just pick one, the speculating part?
So that group that is providing the capital to the company, will be focused more on the long term, as Pavel said. So those usually would be bigger financial institutions or sector industry investors. The people, the investors, the reference would be to the guys that are trading stock on the Warsaw Stock Exchange, in our case, and the guys speculating will be those that will be interested in day-to-day trading and having the profit day-to-day, right, and they close their positions. So I guess also the companies that we have on the market could be divided, having that split. So I guess the investor that is speculating wouldn't be interested in companies like 11-bit studios that is accommodating the value throughout 3 years and then having that upward trend for just after the release of their game. I would expect the capital providers to be more focused currently on the private market, as the situation of the stock exchanges is very difficult. I would still expect the companies like Embracer, for example, to be active in Poland and do some business here, even in 2020, which will be difficult. But I don't expect them to be interested in any of the companies that is currently listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange.
But they already have some interest and say that publicly about the region of Poland. So one thing to add, venture funds. Yeah, in Poland there are a few ones with good track record. So when I'm looking at the companies on the next stage, so pre-IPO or during IPO or public companies, the good companies are before 5 years, let's say 7 years before or 3 years, someone helped them, like a VC started up the company, like a Creepy Jar, for example, or Stan company Covenant. So it's nice to see that at the end of the day, it's the same good people, like an ecosystem of good companies. So the venture funds have obviously another different horizon. So like, let's say 5 years plus, and they don't have to exit at first session of IPO if they have a trust in the company.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of taking a bit of a step back, because talking to, about companies that are already thinking about their 5-year plan and whether or not they want to grow, have, 2 or more projects done simultaneously, that's great. But when you think about a developer that is just starting their journey and how easy it would be for them to just approach such a venture fund, for example, and actually say, hi, so I've got this idea and I was part of the Witcher team, like half of our country, so
the Moby Games portal, it's good to check. You can always check that on this site. It's pretty easy to find the name and look at the experience.
So it's not that difficult because I've been there. I've searched for investors, introduced myself, not particularly as a ex-Witcher guy, but you can Google me. So like that wasn't the point. So it's rather easy to approach funds, but it's also rather easy to receive a denial. So this is like important not to be, put down by rejections, because you just need a one yes to go forward.
And as the market grows and matures, it's obvious that the investors are seeking for opportunities. So it's not like you are a game dev person or game dev company and you need to do something special to look for funds. The funds will find you if you're good. So maybe Digital Dragons is a good start. If you're here, you can do some business-to-business networking, and that would be a good start. But if you have a good experience, a good project, I can assure you that the funds will find you.
To be honest, I do think that there are more money than the companies. So I would say that it's very easy to find money for game development studio. However, it's hard to find smart money. This is the difference.
Also publishing deals, yeah. So it's alternative to equity investment or bond. So the publishing market, it's crazy right now. Yeah, the big budgets. You can make games not for the money of the foreign investors, let's say company.
And in terms of the smart money, I would assume that in order to distinguish between smart money and just money, you have to have experience and a lot of it too. So are there any seriously super basic bullet points how you would define, how you understand smart money?
From my point of view, I am looking at the person and would like to know if I would like to eat many dinners with him or her for next few years. If it works, then it's more chance that we will have a good cooperation. If this is just about the money, I wouldn't go into.
And again, an interesting point there, because so you're already assuming that once you enter the relationship with an investor, that you're actually going to, like you mentioned, go on a lot of dinners, spend a lot of time together. Why is that?
Because we are eating. And seriously, it's like that, from time to time, they will ask you what is happening at your company, and if you feel that you have partner, not just an investor, then you could be sure that they will care about you when you have some problems, because this is the most important. And usually investors are putting money on the table and thinking that, okay, right now the company just need to grow. And in fact, it's not like that. And usually some of those young startups, even with a huge experience, they will have some fails. And I'm always telling to people who are coming to our company that I like people who failed before, because I believe that, if you have successes, it creates your ego. If you have some fails, it creates your character. This is the difference. So I'm trusting people who failed. And that's why I believe that this is very important to have relationship, because if people will just put money, they will not be involved and they will don't understand the company. And gaming companies are different from any other kind of companies which you could buy, because this is the part of the creation. And people who are investing and understanding this, they would like to know much more.
What's good is that we are living in an age that we share a lot of information and a lot of opinions about all kinds of companies, also investors. So whenever you're looking for an investor, whether it's a VC fund or a publisher, you can always try to look him up, ask around on forums or among your friends from the industry, and chances are you'll get to know a bit more about that person. And if you are in a convenient situation of choosing, like who do you cooperate with, then you can pick a person. Maybe this person is offering you a bit less money, but he is that person that Piotr is describing, the person that you will happily go through hurdles to succeed, rather than going just for the funds and not caring about anything else. Because when the shit hits the fan, then you will be better with somebody that's rather trustworthy.
And on that note, first of all, what do you mean by hurdles? And second of all, what do you think you can expect from an investor? Because, it's somebody that comes in and already gives you all this money, and then you kind of want more from them? How does that work?
It can be anything from the hurdle perspective. It can be anything, starting from the situation where you want to issue shares or sign some agreements, paperwork, and you are in the middle of pandemic and you actually cannot exchange papers very quickly, and you need to ask around a bunch of people to set up e-signatures that qualifies for that. And you need to do it within a week. So sometimes this helps, if you have a very understanding investors. If not, that will produce some inconveniences, let's say. And the other part of the question was?
What else can you actually expect from an investor?
What else can you expect? Well, it depends on the investor, but it's good if definitely an investor can offer something more than money. So if talking about publishers especially, then this range of support can differ quite a lot. So some of them will just expect you to provide results and progress with your game, and some will help you quite a lot with getting to that point. So for example, we were lucky enough to sign with a publisher that helps us, for example, on a daily basis on a various of fields. So we are on a daily contact with their people, with different departments, and consult stuff. So and that is very supportive and that is very useful for us. And we don't know that for a fact that a lot of publishers don't do that, because that's like some sort of additional cost that you need to incur, and some people just treat it as an investment, meaning you've got some budget spent for this team, and they should figure it out.
The initial investors might also help you with incorporation, just from the very beginning. There are some matters that you're a game developer, so you don't have expertise, you're not fluent in matters like finance, for example.
Accounting for the listed company, so this IPO thing and so on. So experience from this perspective, when you saw 50 IPO prospects of another branch, you can even hint how should it look. So experience on both sides is important.
So we are basically in Poland, in this part of Europe, operating in a highly regulated market. So it's good to have that advisor, counselor in respect to Polish local law, regulations, finance, financial reporting, etc. So that's something that initial investors can bring to the table apart from the money.
I think we should add the supervisory board. So there are very good and very bad boards. Like there are people who are only signing off, and are friends of management, or they're not supervising. Yeah, that's bad, obviously, because there is no real looking at this investment. So every active investor would like to have at least one supervisory board member. So when I invested in Bluebird team in 2019, obviously it was connected with Piotr acceptance of member of the supervisory board. The same with CA Games. So Marek Tymiński also accepted before the investment such a proposal, because when you invest your client's money, you'd like to see the effects, obviously, and have trust in this investment. So the supervisory board could be really advise the management when it's good and experienced, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of, we're now entering into supervision, making sure that once you have invested your money, that basically that things are going the right way. But from the perspective of both an investor and an investee, how easy it is to get the power struggle going on, as in the investor would like for the game or the project or the studio, if they invested into a whole studio rather than just the game, they want to push into a certain direction. But for example, the developer says, well, no, my game is about something else. So where can't, and what can the investor actually push for?
Definitely, the investor should not block decision of the management here, because when it's a match, like Piotr said before, it's like the strategy doesn't change on a daily basis. So you are doing your job, and something big should appear to, like, investor could block, or probably will talk about it before making some decisions anyway.
In my opinion, investors shouldn't press, because if investor will press, then it will be depression. If investor will keep asking, then this is a good idea, because sometimes those questions will give the opportunity to think what I'm doing wrong. Maybe I forget about something which I should consider. But if someone from investor side would like to get the direction, it's the very quick way to make a big fail.
I would just add to this that it's very important from my perspective to just set a line in the contract. If you're talking especially about like publishing deals, if you draw a line where some responsibilities, ownerships, and what happens if, then it's easier to sleep well if something goes wrong. And usually, and I hope that I won't get to that point, usually you can talk it through because you've obviously tried to pick the person that you feel comfortable cooperating with. But if the bad times happen, then there's always this bottom line that you can refer to, that you both agreed, that you both signed at the very beginning. So that's also helpful.
And exactly in terms of the terms that you both agreed to, that you both signed, et cetera, and this is a difficult question to relate to, but I'm going to do my best here. From a perspective, if you were to put yourself into a complete junior game dev person that just has a brilliant idea, motivated, 4 or 5 people that actually want to do something, who can they actually go to in order to verify such an agreement? Or are there any red flags that you would say that if an investor asks you to contain clause, whatever, in their agreement, that you would consider that a red flag? Anybody?
I have such questions from the small companies because they are coming and asking about that. So the usual answer for me is I would not play your game at this stage. Let's go to some small independent publisher, and always referring this to making some intro to the guys I trust. So that's easy because when the publisher see early stage, the feedback would be crucial here. So I'm not pretending that I will be better in appraisal of the early stage game than VC fund or publisher. So that's important to know your competence and not to take everything on your back.
From my own point of view, it's always about the document, which is the most important from my point, which is term sheet. Because if we are talking about the intention, the agreement should reflect everything what we are talking about, and usually it's like that most investors are sending just agreement. This is also about publishers. We made the decision that if we will work with someone, we always will put term sheet. It doesn't matter what kind of how the document will looks like. It could be even a few words on email. However, we exactly should know from the very beginning about what we are talking. Personally, I had conversation with one of the biggest private equity funds, and so they made term sheet for us, and then agreement was completely different than term sheet. And I told them that I don't want to talk anymore. They say sorry. They made another round of sending agreement, which in fact was the same agreement in other words. And it was the finish of our conversation. And it still could be, and we could agree for those terms which they send us. However, it's impossible to trust people who are sending you completely different things that you already worked on for a few weeks.
Yeah, and I think that's a brilliant tip. Like, I haven't known the term sheet 2 years ago. When I found out that you can do it like that, set the intentions first and then proceed with the paperwork, that's like a total game changer also for me. But to advise your theoretical junior, I would say that to get an intermediary that actually knows the stuff, or at least a very experienced lawyer who also has some agreements already behind her or him has built.
So I would add something to what Pavel said in the beginning. So from my experience, I had 2 conversations yesterday with 4 people, 4 devs, 2 teams, very small, like looking for 1 million zlotys, with a brilliant project, very enthusiastic about it. But the guys didn't have that thing, entrepreneurial thing. So what I told them, you should contact the publisher, and that's it. So there are different solutions to the same problem. So a publisher is a good choice for such devs. An experienced, small teams doing that after hours. Yep.
Yeah, because without the game, which would be just okay or average, you cannot have a company like a startup. It's your product.
So, okay, now you have to have this entrepreneurial thing in order to start talking to investors. And if you don't, you probably should go for a publisher. So that's great. But what else should they actually bring to the table? As in, what is the bare minimum that someone was supposed to bring to you for you to invest into their game/studio? Or from your experience, what's the bare minimum that you have ever shown to a potential investor?
I guess vertical slice is a good milestone for me. Before the vertical slice, you could not assess if you are not 10 years game dev experienced guy. Yeah, you should consult that. So it's a different kind of animal. So before it's another investors like VC or seed, and I like when the companies are pre-founded or founded on insiders' cash. Yeah, so when you left CD Projekt Techland and so on, so nice when you are reinvesting your own money on the first, so you believe that that's the best investment in your life actually. And yeah, so that's good insight when you invested your own cash.
Usually that's the best tip and the main thing that the people are looking for, like there's some sort of like a tangible result of your work to show, not just like a PowerPoint. If you are like a totally new company on the market and haven't actually proved yourself as a new team, because you could have like bazillion years of experience working as a specialist, but like again, like creating your own company and running your own company is just like a different pair of shoes. So you need to prove that your new team is efficient and working in this new environment.
One thing what is not sufficient, definitely, I think the cards team and pre-trailer, that's not enough. So that market is over. So
you need to add wish list.
Being a bit conscious of time and looking how, there's a bunch of people, just want to assess before I go into another windy road. Do you guys have any questions? Does anybody want us? Okay, right, so.
Hi, good afternoon. So my question has like two layers. So did you ever had a pitch that was perfect? It checked all the boxes, but your instincts said somehow, no, this is not for me. And did the opposite also happen? Like it wasn't so good, it didn't check almost anything, but your instinct somehow said that yes, I want to work with them.
I can answer that question. Yes, I was pitched with such a game, and it was The Invincible by Star Wars Industries. I didn't invest in it, and I'm serving on the supervisory board of that company. The reason I didn't do that at the time was just I didn't know these people, and that was enough for me not to put that money. I liked the project, I loved the project, but I didn't know them at all. I mean, anything, and that was the reason for that.
But generally, definitely, there are good sellers, and the great pitch is possible for a bad game. Yeah, so that's a problem. From you cannot you have someone selling your company, yes, so equity. So always you have to be cautious. Yes, so and looking at. Poor pitch, but when you're seeing this guy is good or maybe don't have enough time to prepare to do it or just doing this for the first time, but you think that the game could be good. That's the more important even, yeah, because that's the future financials of the company. So basically, how you appraise the value. Yeah, so the game is crucial at the end.
Also something to add, trust is crucial. So at that time, I didn't know the guy. I could have time to get to know him, right? But I didn't have it. So probably I had a month or 2 months time, I would invest that money, but I didn't. So yeah, that was that quick for me.
I'll just add a little bit of a story here from my perspective. I'll get to the answer, I promise. So like a few years ago, I've just believed so much in my pitch that I've invested my own money. So I've took a lot of loans and totally failed with it. So I get like 50 no's from the publishers when I have pitched it, the prototype I mean. Then I received some seed money from one believer in me, myself. So we went through with it and started a company. Then we did a prototype of it. And then I did another round of publishing pitches. And we did get some interest, but it wasn't perfect, and it was like so-so. Those propositions, those term sheets that we referred to weren't very attractive. That's because the prototype sucked, kind of. And half a year later, we did a trailer, and the trailer did so good that I've got like a bunch of requests from LinkedIn, people just asking me to meet and invest in them. And now we've got a publisher and a shareholder in the form of Krafton and PUBG Corporation just because of that. So that's like just to say that shitty presentations, even shitty prototypes, sometimes can end up good.
Actually, I recalled the Stan pitch from the Rock Bridge when he approached me, and it's actually one thing I remember. It's like I said, yeah, it was a startup company then, yeah, like early stage, and I said, yeah, this seems interesting. I trusted Stan, but I said I want to see the game, and I asked if I can visit students. No, he opened the computer and showed me the game. I showed the guard. Okay, I think it's a trustworthy path. Yeah? When you at the first meeting had nothing to hide. So I guess 8 from 10 companies would not be prepared to show the game when I asked at the first pitch. Maybe some screenshot or something like a trailer maximum.
Any questions?
Okay, so basically that means that we are awesome and we have answered any and all doubts of yours. So, thank you, gentlemen. And as a quick summary, because we still have 7 minutes that you wonderful gentlemen can divide between yourselves, what is the last thing or the most important thing or something that I didn't even touch upon when we're talking here that you would say for the developers, the publishers, the investors, what's the most crucial from your perspective when it comes to inserting the coin?
I would say don't rush anything. So if you're a game developer, don't rush the investor. He'll be there. If he's okay with your vision, he will be there. For investors, also don't rush things. It's a red flag for both. So if you're a game developer and rushing things, for investors, it's a red flag that something is not okay, you're lacking money, there is a problem, nobody else is interested in the project. And the same goes for the investors. So that would be it.
I would look as a reference to the best companies in the branch, and we haven't talked. I'm thinking now, let's say 11-bit studios. The path of free games made each next games it's more expensive, it's selling better. So Anomaly, This War of Mine, Frostpunk. Well, what would be the next 3 projects? Probably 2 would be very good bestsellers. So the path of evolution, not to just flip a coin, high risk, yes or no. Yes. So there was even bankruptcy in the game dev Nicolas games. Some project will fail. So definitely evolution and keeping the risk low.
I would say that from both perspectives, developers and from investors, always get feedback. Because this is the main mistake. People are getting just pass and not asking why. This is the most important from both investor and developer side, because sometimes developer will choose another investor. Why? It was the reason because of me, or someone give me a better proposal, or I found another value in their proposition. And from developer point of view, it should be very good material for understanding where we are. And this is the cheapest marketing research, and we should use it all the time.
I would just advise to developers looking for investors to persevere, not to give up, but at the same time be smart about it. If you're getting a lot of feedback which is negative, sometimes it's better to just let go on that project and maybe switch to another, not cling to your own vision and just think that you're the smartest and they don't know nothing. So be smart about it, use that feedback, and just move on.
Okay then, so just looking at, okay, well, we're 4 minutes ahead of time, but I think that's still okay for everybody. So I want to thank everybody to actually come here and listen to us, the wonderful panel of gentlemen here, and I do hope that this helps, that this has, answered more questions than it raised. And then considering how you didn't ask anything, you're either afraid, so you shouldn't be looking for investment probably, or you just know everything, which is awesome. So thank you so much for spending this lovely time with me.
Thank you.
And enjoy.
Thanks.